The alarm hit me before I even opened my eyes. 4 ships had appeared around us in less than a minute, and I knew, in that first breath, that we were not going to see our homeworld again. My name is Torin. I was the 3rd navigator on a small trading ship called the Quiet Drift, and we had spent 6 weeks moving through a stretch of space that felt too calm, too easy, too kind. I should have known that kindness like that always has a price. The Scarveth do not attack ships that fight back. They wait. They guide. They let you relax until the moment you cannot run anymore. 4 of their hunter ships surrounded us that night. Black hulls, sharp edges, red lines running across them like veins. They did not fire. They never fire right away. They simply closed the circle around us, slow and steady, the way something closes around prey that has already stopped struggling. Our captain, a calm woman named Grace, opened a channel and tried to speak with them. Her voice shook, just a little, and I remember thinking that this was what fear sounded like when it was trying very hard to sound brave. The Scarveth did not answer. They never do. They only watch. I stood at my station, my hands frozen over the controls, my mind racing through every possible option. There were none. Our ship had no weapons strong enough to fight even one of theirs, let alone 4. Our engines were too old to outrun them. We were, in every sense, trapped. Then, something happened that none of us expected. A 5th ship appeared, but it did not arrive the way the others had. It came in fast, cutting through space like it had run the whole distance on pure will. It was small, rough-looking, with plating that did not match on either side, as if it had been built by someone who cared more about function than appearance. There was no symbol on it that I recognized. No flag, no faction mark, nothing. It moved straight toward the center of the circle and placed itself between our ship and the nearest hunter vessel. The distance was so small that our sensors screamed a warning, telling us that a crash was seconds away. One of the Scarveth commanders finally spoke. Their voice came through cold and flat, demanding to know who had just interrupted their hunt. The answer came back calm, almost bored, like the person speaking had done this many times before. "This is Captain Daniel Hart, independent trader, ship name Second Horizon. You have 1 minute to leave." After that, I stopped being polite. I heard something strange come from the Scarveth channel. It took me a moment to understand what it was. It was laughter. All 4 ships were laughing, mocking the idea that one small ship could give orders to a hunting pack 4 times its size. The human did not repeat himself. He did not raise his voice. The minute simply ended, and everything changed. I want to tell you that what happened next was quick, but it did not feel quick. It felt like watching a puzzle solve itself piece by piece, faster than any of us could follow. The Second Horizon did not move like a ship trying to survive a fight. It moved like a ship trying to convince every single hunter vessel that it alone was the real danger in the system. It turned sharp angles that should have torn its frame apart. It slipped close to the lead hunter ship, so close that any normal pilot would call it reckless, and in one smooth pass, it disabled the weapons system on that ship without destroying it completely. It was almost surgical, like flipping a switch rather than tearing something down. The second hunter ship tried to move in from the side, hoping to trap the Second Horizon between itself and its damaged packmate. But the small ship shifted at the last second, and the second hunter ship ended up taking a hit meant for someone else entirely. Through all of this, Daniel kept speaking, but not to us. He was speaking to them. "You picked an easy target because easy targets do not fight back. That is not hunting. That is simply unfair advantage, dressed up as strength." The third hunter ship broke away and left the fight. I remember staring at the screen in disbelief, because everything I had ever learned about the Scarveth said they never do that. They do not retreat before a kill is confirmed. Their entire culture is built around finishing what they start. But that night, they broke that rule. By the time it ended, only one hunter ship remained, and it too turned and vanished into the dark, leaving behind a trail of damaged systems and wounded pride. The Second Horizon drifted quietly in the space where the fight had taken place, venting steam from several points along its hull, clearly hurt, but still moving under its own power. Captain Daniel opened a direct channel to us. His face appeared on our screen, and I remember being surprised by how ordinary he looked. Not like a warrior, Not like someone who had just faced down 4 ships built for hunting. He looked tired, the kind of tired that comes from doing something difficult more than once. "You are clear," he said. "They will not come back tonight. They do not like unpredictable losses." Grace, still shaking from everything that had happened, asked the question that all of us were thinking. "Why did you help us? We are not your people. We are not your allies. You had no reason to risk your life for strangers." Daniel thought about that for a moment before answering, the way someone answers a question they have heard many times but never quite the same way twice. 4 ships against people who could not fight back, he said. That is not a fair fight. That is simply cruelty wearing the mask of strength. I do not like that kind of math. He signed off before Grace could respond, and the second horizon moved away slowly, refusing every offer of help, every offer of payment, every offer of anything at all. It was as if the debt ran the other way, as if what he had done was as small and simple as holding open a door for someone whose arms were full. We sat there for a long moment after he left, none of us speaking, still trying to understand what we had just witnessed. I had served on trading ships for many years by that point. I had seen dozens of different species deal with danger, and almost every single one of them calculated risk before lifting a hand to help someone else. Help usually came with a price, a trade, an expectation of return. That was simply how most of the galaxy worked. I had never seen a species that looked at 4 against 1 and treated it as a personal insult that needed to be corrected immediately, without any thought of reward. That was the first time I met a human, but it was not the last. 3 months later, our ship docked at a trading station near the edge of a quiet system, a place where different species often stop to repair their vessels and exchange goods before continuing their journeys. It was there that I saw the second horizon again, parked near one of the outer docking arms, still carrying the marks of that battle across its hull like old scars that had never been fully repaired. I found Daniel sitting alone in the station's common area, drinking something warm from a plain metal cup. He looked different without the tension of battle around him, calmer, quieter, almost invisible among the crowd of traders and travelers moving through the station. I sat across from him and told him who I was, reminding him of the night his ship had appeared out of nowhere and turned back 4 hunters at once. He nodded slowly, recognition passing across his face, though he did not seem surprised or particularly proud of what he had done. I asked him why he keeps doing this. Why does he keep placing himself between danger and strangers who cannot repay him? He told me a story about his home world, a planet that had gone through centuries of conflict long before it ever reached the stars. He said that for most of human history, people fought each other over land, resources, and pride, and that it took a very long time and a great deal of loss before enough of them agreed that strength should never be used against those who cannot defend themselves. He said that lesson did not disappear once humans left their planet. If anything, it became more important, because now they had the power to travel between stars, and with that power came the responsibility to use it carefully. He told me that when he sees 4 ships surrounding one, it does not matter to him who is right or wrong, who started the conflict, or what species is involved. What matters is the number. 4 against 1 is not a fight. It is simply an imbalance that needs to be corrected. I asked him if he was ever afraid, facing ships far stronger than his own, ships that could have destroyed him in seconds if things had gone differently. He smiled a little at that question, the kind of smile that carries both humor and honesty at the same time. He said that fear never really goes away, but it stops being the most important thing in the room once you decide what you are going to do anyway. I remember sitting there, trying to understand a mindset that felt so different from anything I had grown up with. Where I came from, courage was often measured by how much you could gain from a risk. For Daniel, courage seemed to be measured by how much he was willing to lose for people who owed him nothing. Before I left the station that day, I asked him one final question. I asked if he ever grew tired of doing this, of constantly placing himself in danger for strangers who could vanish from his life within a single day. He looked out through the station window at the stars beyond, quiet for a long moment before answering. He said that tired was not really the word for it. He said that some nights were harder than others, and some fights left marks that did not fully heal, but that stopping was never really an option, not because he owed anyone else, but because he owed it to himself. He said that once you decide who you want to be, walking away from that becomes far harder than continuing forward, even when continuing forward is dangerous. I did not fully understand what he meant that day, but I have thought about his words many times since then, especially during the years that followed, years in which I heard more and more stories about humans doing similar things across different systems. There was a story about a human pilot who intercepted a group of raiders preparing to attack a mining colony with almost no defenses of its own, buying enough time for the colonists to evacuate before any real damage could be done. There was another story about a human trading vessel that gave up valuable cargo space to carry refugees from a dying station, even though it meant financial loss for the crew and no guarantee of any reward at the other end of the journey. Each story was different names, different places, different situations, but the pattern underneath them all felt strangely familiar. Humans, it seemed, carried this same idea with them wherever they went, this belief that strength existed to protect rather than to dominate, and that fairness mattered even in places far from any law that could enforce it. I began to understand, slowly, that what I had witnessed that night with Daniel was not a rare exception. It was closer to a rule, one that many humans seem to follow without needing to be told. Years later, I found myself in another dangerous situation, though this time, it did not involve hunter ships or open battle. Our trading ship had suffered a major system failure deep in an unclaimed region of space, far from any station capable of sending help quickly. Our life support systems were failing, our engines were dead, and our emergency signal had gone unanswered for nearly 2 full days. I remember the fear that settled over the crew during that time, a quiet, heavy fear that comes from knowing help might never arrive. On the 3rd day, a ship appeared on our sensors, moving toward us at full speed. It was not the Second Horizon. It was a different human vessel entirely, crewed by people I had never met before, led by a woman named Claire who introduced herself calmly over the comm channel the moment she arrived. She did not ask what we could offer in return for help. She did not calculate the value of our cargo or the likelihood of future trade between our peoples. She simply began giving instructions to her crew, preparing to transfer emergency supplies and repair equipment onto our ship as quickly as possible. While her engineers worked to stabilize our life support, I asked her why she had responded to our signal at all, since we were strangers from a distant system with nothing of real value to offer her in exchange. She looked at me with an expression that reminded me strongly of Daniel, years earlier, sitting quietly in that station with his warm drink and tired eyes. She said that a distress signal is not a trade request. It is simply someone asking for help. And where she came from, ignoring a call like that, when you have the power to answer it, is considered one of the worst things a person can do. Her words stayed with me long after our ship was repaired, and we continued on our journey. I have spent many years since then studying different species, listening to different stories, trying to understand what drives each of them to act the way they do. Most species, I have learned, act primarily out of self-interest, which is not a flaw, simply a pattern shaped by survival and history. Humans are not free from self-interest either. They are not perfect, and they make mistakes just like everyone else. But there remains something different about the way many of them respond to imbalance, to unfairness, to situations where the strong prey upon the weak without consequence. It is as if some deep part of their history taught them that allowing such imbalance to continue unchecked eventually leads to greater harm for everyone, including themselves. I think back often to that night when the hunter ships surrounded us, certain that we had reached the end of our journey, certain that nothing could change what was about to happen. And then, out of nowhere, a single human ship appeared, small and rough and outnumbered, and decided that the odds did not matter nearly as much as what was right. I do not know exactly what shaped that decision within Daniel, or within Claire, or within the countless other humans who have made similar choices across the years since that night. I only know that whatever it is, it has changed how many of us look at the universe, and at what strength is truly meant for. Before that night, I believed that power always sought more power, and that the only real question in any conflict was who would come out on top. After that night, I understood something different. I understood that real strength is not simply the ability to take what you want, it is the choice to stand between danger and those who cannot protect themselves, even when nothing waits for you on the other side except more danger, more risk, and no promise of reward. That is the lesson I carry with me now, every time I travel through open space, every time I hear a distress call from a ship I do not recognize, every time I remember the night the hunter ships surrounded us, and a single human ship appeared out of the dark to change everything.